Hi, I'm Ridley Scott, filmmaker and one of the producers on this marvelous show called Labyrinth. Complexity, always the complexity. Her novel is a spectacular read. You're in, and I read, as I think I was saying before, I've now found my job more and more and more is about reading, and because you can't have someone choose something that you're going to do, you have to choose it yourself. You have to read. And so, and everything, the same goes with producing. If we're going to go down a path where I'm getting presented stuff and saying, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? I can't look at the reader's report. I have to read the goddamn book or whatever the article is or whatever. And so I sat down and read it. And I usually know within about, honestly, 2 paragraphs whether I'm in good hands or not. You do. From the minute people, it starts off with the names. And you think, and so-and-so, and you think, oh God, that's a terrible name. So already you feel you're in bad shape. So then they have to, you give them a couple of pages. That's what's interesting. And there's always a way of doing it. There's always a way of finding how to do that in a seamless way. And, you know, and that's the marvelous thing about film. I could be standing in this room, and this room probably hasn't changed. I'm sitting in this room, and this room hasn't changed for maybe 40 years. And I feel I'm being watched. So I'll turn around and look, and there's a child standing in the middle of the room who's dressed in clothing from 1910. That's interesting, and that's spooky. Rollerbauer and David Zucker in LA. David introduced me to roller and the idea that there may be a way of a company that essentially a company that brings finance to projects, but at the same time have an enormous knowledge and have very much a creative opinion about everything they're doing. So it was a good marriage initially, even though what we chose to do was very ambitious. It was 8.5-hour miniseries that we had to do, which was complicated in the fact that it was a 25-year span of the life and times of certain characters, the births, the deaths, the murders, the corruption, the change of kings, the brutality, all set within the background of a stonemason's experiences, and he's building a cathedral. That's complicated. But, and by all standards and all rule books for what I'd call American TV, it's a no-no, right? So that's why we actually did it out of Europe. I think it's refreshing that suddenly the female is the lead, not the guy. And for instance, Sigourney Weaver wasn't going to be, Ripley was a guy. And even early on when I was actually reading it, thinking Ripley, this guy. And then, I can't remember who, somebody said, I think it was Laddie, said, why don't we make this a woman? And I thought, immediately thought that was a good idea. Because she comes from the back of the field. You don't know who this is initially. You don't know who this is until you're halfway through the goddamn movie. And suddenly she starts to take over because she has to. So in the instances here, yeah, that leads me to certainly Labyrinth, where we are today. There's an attraction to the fact that, it's 2 female leads. I don't know why, I just gravitate towards that. I feel it's less expected, therefore it's more interesting. I'd seen Chris Smith's Black Death, and I was absolutely knocked out by what he'd done, because you take the story of cult witchcraft, the time of the Black Death, the plague, a group of vigilante group who go around now in a perverse way finding communities that have survived, and if they've survived, then they must be protected by magic, witchcraft. So whichever way you're on it, you're a loser. And I thought that was a really great, crazy, brutal merry-go-round. And it could have been cliche, and he did it brilliantly. That was it. John Hurt I'd actually worked with, and I killed him in the first act. I mean, really horribly, but at least it was celebrated. No one ever forgets that one.